Hi there, sisters and brothers watching this video. I stand here in a flat in Munich, in Germany. Over my shoulder you can see the snow outside. Sorry for the unprofessional recording. It's just done on my mobile phone, but still a great privilege to talk to you. My name is Piet Naudé. I'm the author of the chapter on the wonderful book, African Theology and Public Theology. And the first part of the book deals with conceptual analysis. What is public theology? How does it relate to Africa? The second and biggest part of the book deals with issues of public life. And that section starts with issues around politics, democracy, work, labor. And then obviously the chapter that I form part of, chapter 8, is the chapter on public theology and economics. Well, the Lord prepared me a long time for this chapter. Firstly, when I studied in the arts faculty first at Stellenbosch University, I did philosophy up to my third year. I fell in love with the subject. I did an honors specializing, as it were, on reading Karl Marx and the economic theory that is still influential today. I then went on to do a master's in philosophy to work on theories of social distributive justice. How do we get a more egalitarian society, specializing on the very influential theory of American philosopher John Rawls, linking that to Immanuel Kant. And then the Lord clearly called me back to a more focused theological study. And I did a PhD in systematic theology on the relationship between dogmatics and ethics, reading mostly Latin American liberation theologians, but also Johann Baptist Metz and Jürgen Moltmann from Germany. So from an early academic mind, the issue of justice, economics, social distribution was very much in the forefront of my mind. I then taught mainly biblical and religious studies, later move on to teach ethics to many different subject fields within the university, which is now the Nelson Mandela University. So I taught ethics to the media students, I taught ethics to the public administration students. I made a huge breakthrough in teaching a specific ethics model to the people in accountancy. But obviously keeping my theological roots. I then went on to become the first full-time director of the business school of the Nelson Mandela University, and that gave me contact with the world of economics. I then later moved back to Stellenbosch, and for 6 years I was the director of USB, the University of Stellenbosch Business School. And obviously that exposed me to a global audience of big businesses, but also around South Africa. Spoke at many of the business conferences about ethics, values, corruption, building a democratic society. So back into the academy, I started to write on these things, published a few articles on economic justice, the preferential option for the poor, on economic policy. I even co-published with one of our very good monetary economists in South Africa. So God prepared me, and this chapter starts off by asking, why do theologians need economics? And the answer is simple. It gives us the empirical base for our claims. If we say the state should distribute taxes with a preferential option for the weakest in society or the poor in society, and the question then follows, but who is the poor? Then you need a different answer than a theological answer. You need an answer from the poverty indexes that economists work with, basic income grants that they work with, and they can work out precisely what, say, the dollar equivalent of qualifying to be poor is in that situation. And so I can go on. But I also explain why economists need theology, because theology provides the critical mindset to ask questions about the assumptions specifically of the free market economy. Is it true that it's a full description of the human person, that I'm a consumer that make rational choices to advance my own interest? And is it true that by being wealthy, I'm also happy? Those are very important questions, and both these subject fields have drifted apart. They were at one stage very close. We talk even about in Trinitarian theology about the economics of God, meaning the way in which the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit have worked salvation out in the course of history. Yeah, and then I look a little bit at Africa specifically because this is what the book is about. I outline some of the deep challenges of Africa's economy, starting with the fact that we don't trade with one another enough. We trade with China and Europe, and therefore we lose a lot of money that could potentially be gained from intra-Africa trade. It's now a little bit better, but still not what it should be. We have very weak infrastructure, airports, roads, telecommunication, manufacturing capabilities. You cannot run an economy unless there are certain basic infrastructure in place, and I think we have fallen behind. We have high perceptions of corruption on the continent and so forth. So those things work against us. But in my chapter, I clearly make the case that Africa has enormous economic potential. We've got the minerals that the world wants. We've got the youngest population on earth. We've got the blue economy completely underdeveloped, the oceans and the lakes. Massive opportunities for Africa. And then I turn in my chapter to the more theological part, as you wish, where I start with what do our confessions say about economic justice. And I go back to the Nicene Creed. We believe in God the Father, the one God, the Apostolicum, the creator of heaven and earth. What does that mean, for instance, for ecology and justice? I then look at the Bellar Confession with its very famous fourth article on that God is in a special way the God of those who were treated unjustly in the past. He had revealed himself and the church to stand with him. And the very strong prophetic message that comes from the Accra Confession. I know some think it's more a declaration than a confession. That's not my concern now. So I make the point that in our tradition, which is exemplified in our confessions, word about justice and economics are very much embedded. In fact, it grew over the ages. It's now much more in the forefront than it was in the past. And then I think the core of the chapter, and if you don't want to read the whole chapter, just read page 109. Because there I put down 5 clear guidelines, tests, criteria for what one then could consider from a Christian perspective is a good or a just economy. It's one that gives ecology and nature its due status because it's God's creation. We are only stewards. It's an economy that restores and advances human dignity because we are made in the image of God. It's an economy that strives toward greater equality in society, a greater egalitarian society. It's an economy that makes provision for special care for those who are weak, who are old, who are disabled, who need care, children, refugees. An economy should take care of them. And then lastly, what is now becoming more and more important with climate change also is it's an economy that allows a country and countries collectively to assist one another in a crisis, whether it's Ebola or coronavirus or big floods in Mozambique. We must be able in that situation to assist and help one another. I then end the chapter with coming back to the church, although you will notice in the book that the church actually forms the third big subsection of the book. And there I simply make the point that economics is important for the local church. You do what you can in that context. But normally that is not the most effective way to address really systemic economic issues. Therefore, you need the regional church, however that is organized. And obviously, lastly, you need the global, the ecumenical church, where we speak out on economic justice, where we participate in economic policy, where we try and make clear to big business and countries that we do not accept simply a market economy with the blind forces of the market disallowing the kind of economy that we as Christians believe is good for the world, and in that sense then also good for business. I pray the Lord will bless you in reading this, contemplating and thinking about this, because I've done this only to glorify Him and to give my thanks to Him. And thank you then very much for the editors of the book who invited me, and for those who organized these colloquiums or discussions. May the Lord bless you. From Germany, Piet Naudé, thank you very much. Bye-bye. God bless.